Hello everyone. Once again, welcome back to the course of Object-Oriented Analysis and Design. This video is brought to you by Newton's Group of Institutions. This is Arvind Egireddy from Department of CSC. Today, in this video, I'll be talking about interaction diagrams in basic behavioral modeling. So in our previous video, we have discussed about interactions. If you did not watch, please go through that video. It will help you a lot to understand the concept. I am giving the link in the description. Please go through it. In this video, we will discuss about the interaction diagrams, its terms and concepts and modeling techniques. So in our previous video, we have seen that when we model an interaction, we typically include both objects and messages. So we can visualize those objects and messages involved in an interaction in two ways. One is by emphasizing the time ordering of messages, and the other by emphasizing the structural organization of the objects that send and receive the messages. So in UML, the first kind of representation is called as sequencing diagram, and the second kind of representation is called as an collaboration diagram. And both sequence and collaboration diagrams are known as interaction diagrams. So these sequence diagrams and collaboration diagrams are isomorphic, which means that we can take one of the transformation into other without the loss of the information. So sequence diagrams let us to model the lifeline of the object, as object lifeline represents the existence of the object at a particular time. So here we show that the objects are arranged along the x-axis and messages and ordered in increasing time along the y-axis. And a collaboration diagram lets us model the structure links that may exist among the objects in the interaction. So here in the collaboration diagram is an interaction diagram that emphasizes the structural organization of the objects that send and receive messages graphically. A collaboration diagram is a collection of vertices and arcs. This is what we have seen in our previous video. Now, let us see what are the common properties in interaction diagrams. So, an interaction diagram is just a special kind of diagram that shares the same common properties as do all other diagrams. So what distinguishes an interaction diagram from all other kinds of diagrams is its particular content. So here the interaction diagrams commonly contain roles or objects, collaborations or links, messages, links all other diagrams. Interaction diagrams may contain nodes and constraints. Sequencing diagram. A sequencing diagram emphasizes the time ordering of message. We can form a sequence diagram by first placing the objects or roles that participate in the interaction at the top of our diagram across the horizontal axis. So if you can see that on the top we have the objects. So typically we place these objects or roles that initiate the interaction at the left, and increasingly more subordinate objects or roles to the right. So we come from left to right. Next, we arrange the messages. So whatever the messages we pass, we arrange those messages that these objects send and receive along the vertical axis in the order of increasing time from top to bottom. So we come the messages from top to bottom. So this gives the reader who see the sequence diagram a clear view to the flow of control over the time. And here in sequence diagram, we have two features that distinguishes them from the collaboration diagram. In the first, there is a lifeline. That is, an object lifeline is the vertical dashed line that represents the existence of the object over a period of time. So this is the lifeline, vertical, which is a dashed line. And here in this case, we can see that most of the objects that appear in the interaction diagram will be the existence for a duration of interaction. So their lifetime starts with the receipt of the message create. So when we use this word create, its lifetime starts. And we may destroy the objects during the interaction. So by passing the destroy, by sending the message or the receipt of the message destroy, we can destroy the object. So here, in the second case, there is a focus of control. So the focus of the control is a tall, thin rectangle. So here you can see this tall, thin rectangle. So this rectangle that shows the period of time during which the object is performing an action either directly or through a subroutine procedure. Now, coming to the collaboration diagram, a collaboration diagram emphasizes the organization of the objects that participate in an interaction. You form a collaboration diagram by first placing the objects that participate in the interaction diagram as the vertices in the graph. So next, we render the links that connect these objects as arcs of this graph. So here, the links may have role name to identify them. And finally, to adorn these links with the messages that objects send and receive, so this gives the reader a clear visual cue to the flow of control in context of structural organization of the objects that collaborate. So collaboration diagrams also have two features that distinguish from the sequence diagram. So here first there is a path you render, and we render a path corresponding to an association. We also render paths corresponding to the local variables, parameters, global variables, and self-axis. So here a path represents a source of knowledge to an object. And in the second, there is a sequence number to indicate the time order of the message. And we prefix the messages with a number starting with the message number 1 and increasing monotonically for each new message as a 2, 3 and so on. So to show the nesting, we use a dually decimal number, that is 1 in the first message which contains message 1.1, and if it is a 2, it is a 2.1, 2.2 and so on. So we also show nesting to the arbitrary depth along the same link. So there is no need of using two separate links. So we use the same link and we can show many messages and each will have a unique sequence number. So in the one link itself, we can show any number of messages. So for one link, we are showing n number of messages. So there is no need of separate link for each and every message here. Now coming to semantic sequencing, semantic equivalence, because they both derive from the same information in the UML's meta model, here sequence diagrams and communication diagrams are semantically equivalent. As a result, you can take a diagram in one form and convert it into the other without any loss of information. So already we have discussed in the previous video and in the starting that both the sequence diagram and communication diagrams are isomorphic. Meaning is from one form we can convert to an other form. So as you can see in the previous two figures which are semantically equivalent. However, this does not mean that both the diagrams will explicitly visualize the same information. So if you would have noticed in the previous two figures, the communication diagram, that is the second diagram, shows how the objects are linked by using local and global in the curly brackets. So local and global annotations we have used. Similarly, the sequence diagram, that is our first figure, shows message written, but in the corresponding communication diagram, we did not see any written. So one thing we need to understand, in both the cases, the two diagrams share the same underlying model, but each may render something, others does not. So however, a model entered in one format may lack some of the information shown on the other format. So although the underlying model can include both kinds of information, the two kinds of diagrams may lead to different models. Now we know that we use interaction diagrams to model the dynamic aspects of the system. So these dynamic aspects may include the interaction of any kind of instances in any view of the system architecture, including instance of classes, interfaces, components, and nodes. So when we use an interaction diagram to model some dynamic aspects of the system, we do so in the context of system as a whole, or a subsystem, or an operation, or a class. And we can also attach the interaction diagrams to use cases and also to the collaborations. So here, typically we use interaction diagrams in two ways. One is to model the flow of control by time ordering, and the other one is to model the flow of control by organization. So the model flow of control by time ordering is called sequencing diagrams, and the model flow of control of organization is called as communication diagrams. So here we will see sequence diagrams where the modeling a flow of control by time ordering emphasizes the passing of messages as they unfold over time, which is particularly useful way to visualize the dynamic behavior in the context of an use case scenarios. So sequence diagram do a better job of visualization, simple iterations and branching that do communication diagrams. However, we will use communication diagrams. So modeling a flow of control by organization emphasizes the structural relationship among the instances in the interaction along with the messages may be passed. So here, common modeling techniques. So modeling flow of control by time ordering, which is nothing but our sequential diagrams. So here what we do is we consider the objects that lives in the context of a system, subsystem, operations or classes. Then we consider the objects and roles that participate in an use case or collaboration. So to model a flow of control that wins through these objects and roles, we use an interaction diagram. So to emphasize the passing of messages as they unfold over time, we use a sequence diagram, a kind of interaction diagram. So here, if you can see this figure, which shows a sequence diagram that specifies the flow of control involved in interacting a simple two-party phone calls. So here, how the modeling a flow of control. So to model a flow of control by time ordering, we set the context for the interaction, whether it is a system, subsystem, operation or class, or an scenario of a use case or collaboration. Then we need to set the stage for the interaction by identifying which objects play a role in the interaction. Then we need to lay them out on the sequence diagram from left to right, placing the more important objects to the left and their neighboring objects to the right. So here the lifeline of each object in most cases of the objects will persist through an entire interaction. So for those objects that are created and destroyed during the interaction, we set their lifeline as appropriate and explicit, that indicates their birth and death with appropriate stereotyped messages. So starting with the messages that initiates the interaction, we lay out each subsequent messages from top to bottom. So the messages are from top to bottom. So between the lifelines, showing each message properties such as its parameters as necessary to explain the semantics of the interaction. So if you need to visualize the nesting of the messages or the points in the time when actual computation is taking place, we adorn each object's lifeline with the focus of the control. So if we need to specify the time or a space constraint, we adorn each message with a timing mark and attach suitable time or space constraints. So if we need to specify this flow of control more formally, we attach pre and post constraints to each message. So this is the modeling flow of control by time modeling. Now, let us see the modeling flow of control by organization. Here we need to consider the objects that live in the context of a system, subsystem, operation or classes. We need to also consider the objects and roles that participate in the use case or collaboration. So here, to model a flow of control that wins through these objects and roles, we use an interaction diagram to show the passing of messages in the context of the structure. So we use a communication diagram, which is a kind of a interaction diagram. So here in this figure 4, which shows a collaboration diagram that specifies the flow of control involved in the registering a new student at a school with an emphasis on the structural relationship among these objects. So here, how the model flow of control by organization will be means, first we need to set the context for the interaction, whether it is a system, subsystem, operation or class, or one scenario of a use case or collaboration. Then we need to set the stages for the interaction by identifying which objects plays a role in the interaction. Then we need to lay them out on the communication diagram as vertices in a graph, placing the more important objects in the center of the diagram and their neighboring objects to the outside. So here the student is the most important. That's why we have placed this in the center of the diagram. And these are the neighboring objects what we have placed. Then we need to specify the links among these objects along with the messages we pass. So here the layout, the association link first. These are the most important ones because they represent the structural connection. Then we lay out other links next and adorn them with a suitable path annotation to explicitly specify how these objects are related to one another. So starting with the message that indicates the interaction, we attach each subsequent message to the appropriate link, setting its sequence number as appropriate. So we show nesting by using Dewey Decimal numbers. So here we use the decimal numbers for nesting subsystem. So if you need to specify the time or space constraints, we adorn each message with a timing mark and attach suitable time or space constraints. So this is the modeling flow of control by organization. Thank you. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Thank you all.